Okay.
Are we on now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Hi, Nan.
Hi.
I'm here to ask you some questions about psychodrama, and I'm so happy you agreed to do this.
Oh, thank you.
So I like this. What brought you to psychodrama?
Well, I had been doing, well, I was first exposed to psychodrama when I was in my 20s. And I went to a big presentation, and I said, this is not for me. So, so I had to mature a little bit. And I was in my 30s, and there were a couple of issues in my life that I couldn't get hold of, And I said, let me try psychodrama. And a friend who was an attorney was in a psychodrama group. So I said, okay, let me pursue this. And so I joined the group, and it was just a clinical group where everybody's talking their problems. And so I did that for a couple of years, and it just turned me on. Because as I tell people, I mean, I've got a good head, but with psychodrama, we're not talking about the head, we're really talking about the heart. And I was lucky enough, Dick Graycheck and Bob Soroka and Jackie Soroka along the line, and Dick kicked me out of his group, and he said, go to a training group, you should do this. And then, so it just continued to, I want to say blossom.
Yeah.
And I'm not a, background from the theater. I started right after college. I went to social work school, and, so all mental health right along. But the creativity, and it really spoke to me. But the first 3 or 4 months that I was in the psychodrama group, the director never had me get out of my chair. He said, he said, who in the room? Point to somebody. And it was like, I think he knew my hesitancy of being like on the stage, and we worked that way. And by the end of it, he was saying, why don't you direct this one, or something. And the fellow said, the protagonist, he was so confused. He said, why did you ask all those questions to me? And he had no idea I was the director at that moment.
Oh,
So,
no.
So it was just, just a funny situation.
So that brings me to the question of, what do you think of warm-up then? From what you said, can you tell me about what warm-up means to you?
Warm-up is a really interesting process for me, because safety and trust is paramount. From my background, that feeling safe and being knowing that whatever I say or do is not going to come back and, hit me in the face, literally. And so warming up takes me longer. Once I'm there and trusting, I can go as deep as I want, but I have to trust the people around, and that's why I really like psychodrama, because it is safe. We focus on being safe and not pushing a client, or a protagonist to do more than they want to do, and so the warm-up is really important. And I've been in situations where I haven't been warmed up and it wasn't the place to be, and I learned you just don't go to those places. It's taking care of yourself. And I really I like to nudge clients a little bit, but I don't like to push them, because and there's so much going on internally, and to allow it just to really blossom. And I really like that idea of the midwife. We're midwives for our protagonists and people that we work for. It's listening and going, and so that's kind of.
Well, as warm-up goes, how did you get into ASGPP?
Well, this is funny. I was in my training group, which is in New York City, and Bob Soroka had for a lot of years run big conferences. He wasn't running this particular one to my knowledge, but I thought, let me just go to the lobby. I went to the lobby of the hotel where the workshop was. Bob happened to be standing in the lobby. He was my group trainer. And I just looked around. What kind of people come to these conferences? What's the brochures and stuff? And the next year I came. So it was, I had forgotten that story, but it was like, I just had to make sure, it was okay. And so that and then there was a group of us from the training group that we came, and there were, 3 of us in a room, and just enjoyed ourselves. But again, it was like, oh, all these people, who are these people? And but I learned to trust my intuition and my tele, with people, and found the conferences really, I want to say, satisfying. And it also like role relief from being the therapist all the time, or the group leader, and to be able to go to a workshop, maybe to learn a technique or to explore something else, and something that I could come back with, more refreshed. So that it was a feeding, a nurturing thing. And
well, I'm thinking that you also put on and work very hard to put on an ASGP conference. Is that not true?
There were about 3 of them. There were 2 national conferences, and we had a big New York City conference. We had one, but our national the first one was 750 people. And I remember we had a thermometer in our office, and every time we got another person coming in, we'd raise the thermometer, and we got 750, And that one was at the Roosevelt Hotel, and it had the same magic, that it did for other people earlier. And so it was, that boosted me along. Louise Littman was active, and I became the co-chair with her. And so early on, and I was still new to things, and I was, up there organizing and giving orders, and, well, we got to fill these pamphlets, or we got to make sure this happens, or whatever. But it's hard when you're co-chairing a conference. You don't experience it the same way. It's like, it's what's broken, what people need, and so you're really the container holding. And I would try to go into a workshop, and I'd be called out, 4 times, so then I just kind of gave up. But it was, I think you got an overview of everybody and the breadth and the differences, and so that was a great experience.
So you would tell young people coming into ASGP to volunteer to work at conferences?
Yes, I think that's the greatest way, because whether somebody is really outgoing or not, it's like you're in a new environment, and to have a job, to volunteer, to be session assistants or help out here or there, the silent auction, whatever it is, people really enjoy it. And then I also got to be on the board of examiners for about 6 years. So that again brought me into the, the national psychodramatic community, and which, in having their meetings like every couple times a year, you would just meet people and share, and it just broadened it. And when a client says, I'm moving to California or I'm moving to Florida, I'll say, well, I know a couple people there. And so that makes it really good.
And you help write exam questions as well.
Right, yeah. And that was writing the exam questions. I was a CP PAT working on my TEP, so it was really an interesting way to learn, because I was making questions that I knew, a couple of years I'd be answering, or and I learned a whole lot. And now I have a literature course for students for the exam prep, and it's, I said, this is what we do, and it's not magic. I know how it was, trying to come up with a question that would be fair, that would be, help people. And I think that, I think the community really wants to be inclusive. and bring people in. I remember being on the board and someone said, well, let's do a question about the World Trade Center. It was in '91. And I said, I don't think that's a good thing to bring it up on an exam, because in New York, I was there, experienced it, and had worked with several people, and I knew that there was still so much trauma. So it was, the person in California wasn't thinking like I was, or who, wherever it was. So it was a nice mixture of things.
Didn't you work with firemen or the Irish community, or
Yeah,
at that time, or was that?
Right, I did. I founded and was director of the Irish American. Well, we had to say it because the Irish are particular. Irish/Irish American, because they're two different groups to any good Irishman. And that, I started doing psychodrama groups with them, and I'm like 75% Irish with a little German and a little English, so I know what makes an Irish person tick. And again, it was that slow, steady helping, and there, a lot of folks had a lot of abuse, and so that it was a difficult thing. And some of the clients that I've worked with, severe sexual abuse, physical abuse. And a lot of them I've worked to the phase now that they're reclaiming all of those things that they were taken from them. And in fact... do
you have a story you want to say about it or not?
There was one woman, it was a difficult situation, childhood. Abused by uncle and grandfather, and we did the drama, in the States we did a prescribed psychodrama. We invited particular people in to do it. It was safety-wise, she couldn't do it in her own group, so it was a selected, and that we worked on the abuse scene. And what was really powerful is she gave back to the various people, the abusers, what they had taken away, that she was no longer going to live without safety, or live without trust, or live without fear or vulnerability. She was going to not have those same, maybe I said it a little incorrectly, but all those things that were affected by her abuse, it was like, no more. You take back all of that stuff. And to have a person on the stage using either a scarf or a pillow or an object, just a prop, handing it back to the abuser. That's the power. Or you can have a simple dialogue between two people where they're just really, a mother and a daughter, or a couple, or friends, or where they can be really honest with each other and really share. And that's what it's like, the magic of psychodrama, and it's the relief. And
the role, talking a little bit about role theory, role development, and with this client, a woman you were talking about, was helping her have a more powerful role.
Right. And
how do you see yourself going forward in your psychodramatic roles in your life right now?
I'm at a point that I'm really assessing where I am and feeling good about myself, my practice, my know-how, but also realizing, have the birthdays tick up, and getting to the age that, do I have as much energy as I had X number of years ago? And so I'm still working very hard, but I've worked out a situation where I work 3 weeks and I have a week off. And that allows me to travel, to see my family. I have grandkids and my daughter, but they live 600 miles away, so they're not next door. And I think this work takes a lot out of you. So it's like the self-care. And just with aging, there's always this and that, your body says, slow down. If you don't, we'll slow you down. So I think that's where I am. And just being able to talk in a psychodrama to myself about that. You can't be perfect, you can't do this, being anxious is just part of the game, and it's just keeping everything in balance. And I think that's what psychodrama can do. And I think the ASGPP is, I think the topics and the variety of things, going to workshops on all kinds of things, and you just open it and said, oh my gosh, I need that workshop, I need that. And I need it more for me than I need it for my clients,
Well, you've ran conferences, you've done things. What is your dream for ASGPP and the conferences going forward? What do you have ideas for that?
I think it's trying to get more young blood. I think we are competing with so many other things that in, 2 days they can become certified coaches and deal with whatever. And I know some coaches that are fantastic, but it's that, people are used to that. And so it's how do we not make sure the person has all their skills, and the way we learn it is by doing. I was at a meeting of the Board of Examiners today. They were just telling things, and everything from virtual learning and looking into that, and how adult learning models and what would be expected. So there's all kinds of things that people are trying to do. And so I also teach at Fordham University, so it's getting students starting, and maybe not. Two of my friends that were in their 30s said, you gotta do something and let us know what's happening. And with psychodrama, so it's really interesting. People at this meeting had all kinds of ideas, and it's just trying to put them into action and work and to be open.
If I could bring in Zerka or JL, is there a question or something you'd want to say to them?
Yes, that you were geniuses, and that where you went, the relationships and people, and the double or the role reversal, that these, which appear simple methods, are so powerful, and that that change is possible, and listening, and I really, to thank them. Their styles might be different than my style or whatever, but that the vision, and then when you see a psychodrama, be the protagonist in a psychodrama or a direct one, it can be magic, and it's so important, and not to get lost in other things. It's in the heart of the method,
And along with that, in the heart of the method, and being who you are, a very special, lovely lady, what is a legacy you would like to leave as being a trainer in this and working with the populations and trauma and the things you've done? And you've done a lot. What is that?
I think it's an honesty a gentleness, a presence, to be aware of the other, and be aware of your own needs first, because if they're not addressed, you can't take care of the other. But that I think there's so many theories, but the bottom line is connection and presence and helping, and that there is hope and people can change. It might take a lot of work, but people can change and prosper. Not only change, but prosper. And it's a journey.
Is that what you would say to young people today? What would...
Like, I have a daughter in her 30s, and yes, I want her to be the best person she can, to be fulfilled, to be and she is a wonderful mother, and but I know she worries that she's not, her house might not be the neatest in the world, but those kids love her and they spend focus on the kids. It's just really, I just want her to trust herself and to get help when she needs it. And she does that, and everybody needs that person that's got your back, and I think sometimes as a therapist you become that person that has, somebody's back, and you just hope that happens in their life too, that they, having once been open to it, they can find other people to do it.
Is there something you would like to say that I haven't asked in a question?
Just that I really love psychodrama and sociometry and group psychotherapy, and I think sociometry is a way in to a lot of places when psychodrama is not going to make it, and that the thankful for all the hard workers around that keep trying and doing, and I'm ending some of that in some ways, and yet there's this energy coming in. But yeah, it can be just life-changing, really.